my dear militant comrade Mubengegwi, the Secretary of External Relations of our dear ZANU-PF, to take the stage. Empela, come here as well.
Can we continue? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do we begin?
Yes, comrade, hit.
Ah.
The stage is yours.
Ah, okay.
Viva ZANU-PF, viva!
Viva!
Comrades, can you sit down there? Comrade Mubengegwi feels that you are still talking. That's why he's waiting for you to finish so that you can speak. Comrade Ben Martin said, we have got 2 eyes and 1 mouth. Let's only have our 2 eyes and keep this mouth open.
Okay. Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. I had already, saluted our Deputy President and the leadership of the ANC. I was now coming on to Comrade Fernando Gonzalez, who is the President of ECAP, and the rest of the delegation from Cuba. We are very happy to have you here, our brother and sisters, distinguished delegates, comrades and friends. On behalf of our revolutionary party, the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, and indeed on my own behalf, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation for the opportunity afforded to me to participate in this very important international meeting for our treasured African continent in solidarity with Cuba. Cuba and Zimbabwe have maintained very strong relations since our liberation struggle, which have been based on mutual support and respect. I extend fraternal greetings from His Excellency, the President and First Secretary of our Revolutionary Party, ZANU-PF, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. Let me also, at this juncture, congratulate the African National Congress on this very auspicious occasion of their 112th anniversary and wish them a resounding victory in the forthcoming general elections. Comrades and friends, the struggle for African liberation from colonialism, racism, and apartheid can never be written or narrated without reference to the role played by Cuba in the liberation struggle and the economic and social developments that followed African liberation. Not only did Cuba provide the necessary political and diplomatic support to our various liberation movements, but also provided the necessary military hardware to prosecute the liberation struggle here in Southern Africa in particular. We are all very familiar with the Cuban military intervention culminating in the humiliating defeat of the apartheid regime at the now famous Battle of Quito Valley, which marked the turning point in the total liberation of Southern Africa. Cuba, in spite of the illegal blockade by the United States of America, has become a beacon of excellence in many fields, including technology, medicine, education, and sport. We in Africa have been beneficiaries of these Cuban endeavors. We in Zimbabwe have been beneficiaries of Cuban assistance in the fields of medicine, mathematics, science, and technology. For all these, we are extremely grateful. Zimbabwe today is regarded as one of the most educated countries on the African continent. And this would not have been possible without the kind of support and assistance that we received from Cuba. In spite of their limited resources, they went out of their way to train our teachers, to train our students, and with time to set up universities in our own countries staffed by Cuban academics in various fields. In our medical field, Cuban doctors have continued to work in the most difficult areas in our country, which I must confess, our own nationals would be very unwilling to go and work under those rural conditions. But our brothers and sisters, doctors from Cuba, have gone to the most remote parts of our country to look after the health of our people. And for this, we shall forever remain grateful. Comrades, this political gathering has been necessitated by the current deteriorating impact of the United States-led 60-year economic blockade on Cuba. Through this fraternal solidarity conference, let us show the world our appreciation for Cuba's contribution to Africa's struggle against racism, colonialism, apartheid, and the socio-economic development of the African continent in general, and in the fields of health and education in particular. Comrade Chair, Cuba has been under the brunt of the blockade by the United States of America for the past 6 decades. The economic sanctions on Cuba are possibly the most vicious embargo ever undertaken in modern history. It is now common knowledge how the Western powers use illegal sanctions as instruments of war. The illegal blockade on Cuba is therefore a declaration of war by the United States on the peace-loving people of Cuba. Zimbabwe has also been under illegal sanctions for the past 2 decades. Despite these sanctions managing to significantly cripple aspects of our economy, it has not managed to cripple our resolve to fight against these illegal sanctions and to seek international solidarity against this unprovoked act of war and aggression. I must confess that the Cuban example has always been a source of inspiration for us as we faced this kind of onslaught from the Western powers. We are thousands of kilometers away from the center of imperialism. Cuba is only a short 90 miles away, and yet they've been able to endure and overcome this onslaught for more than 60 years. In this respect, both Zimbabwe and Cuba are under attack for daring to assert their independence and sovereignty. Comrades and friends, as we meet here to express our support and solidarity with the Communist Party of Cuba and the people of Cuba, we are confident that no imperialist machinations will prevent the people of Cuba and the people of Zimbabwe from reaching their national aspirations and fulfilling their destiny. The current economic warfare by imperialist powers is bound to fail. Comrades and friends, there is no doubt that Cuba will continue forging ahead in its quest to maintain sustainable economic prosperity for its people as well as its friends the world over. Africa will always stand by Cuba, as Cuba has always stood by us. We look forward to developing our Cuba-Africa relationship, and as Zimbabwe, we unconditionally appreciate and recognize the role that Cuba has played and continues to play, even in the midst of constant bullying through the imposition of the unjustified illegal economic blockade, which we all demand must be lifted unconditionally. Comrades, as I conclude, let me extend ZANU-PF's congratulations to the African National Congress for the remarkable acts of solidarity with the people of Palestine through the initiatives at the International Court of Justice, which various delegations have already referred to as acts of extreme boldness on the part of South Africa under the leadership of the African National Congress. The organization of this conference in solidarity with Cuba is another example of the commitment of the African National Congress to play its part in the context that those of us who fought wars of liberation know the importance of solidarity, that most of our victories were brought about by solidarity, whether it was political, whether it was diplomatic, whether it was military, at whatever level, we would never have achieved our independence at the time we did without the international solidarity which was accorded to us. And therefore, it is extremely gratifying to see that the African National Congress continued to think of others who are in very difficult situations. Let us not forget that only not so long ago, the African National Congress organized here in South Africa a solidarity summit at the summit level of the SADC countries for the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. So we cannot say that South Africa forgets any of our brothers and sisters who are still struggling to achieve their sovereignty over their own territory. I say to South Africa, keep on, keep on. In our language we say, musaneta, meaning don't you ever get tired. Don't you ever get tired. Amandla. Amandla. Thank you very much.
Usaniyetani, ANC. Thank you very much, Comrade Ubengegwi. I'm now going to ask Comrade, not Augusto, but Comrade, member of the Central Committee of the MPLA, MPLA of Angola, Comrade Bernardo Ngevu. Comrade Bernardo. I must also say, for us, this is a special country in South Africa, the entire region, but this was very special, Angola. Naga ya khutsu le lerato Angola, Angola, Angola Ke naga ya khutsu le lerato Angola, Angola, Angola Kinaga ya khutsu lilirat. Amandla! Yeah, I must say, Comrade, before the speaker comes, because this is very important. It's very emotional as well. We have many of our comrades here, some of our generals, Comrade Lindy. I've seen Comrade Dan Atto, from the Mkonto Sizwe Liberation War veterans. In Angola, that's where we set up our military bases. And we were trained by the Cubans. They trained our comrades. That's where we laid the first combatant of Mkonto Sizwe who died outside. And we have more than 250 graves of our combatants in Angola, general. So that country was very special to us, the country of Agostinho Neto. That's a country that we share the blood. It's ours. Mpela, this is a special meeting.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. 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 Thank you very much, thank you very much. Viva a Revolução Cubana!
Viva!
Viva a Revolução Cubana!
Viva!
Viva a África!
Viva!
Viva os antigos movimentos da libertação da África Austral!
Viva!
Long live Cuban Revolution!
Long live!
Long live Africa!
Long live!
Long live the former liberation movement of Africa!
Long live!
Thank you very much. Camarada primeira secretária-geral adjunta do ANC,
First of all, I would like to give my greetings to the Assistant Secretary General of the ANC,
camarada presidente do Instituto Cubano de Amizade com os Povos,
and to the President of the Cuban Institute of Friendship Among the Peoples,
estimados membros do presídio, distintos convidados, minhas senhoras e meus senhores.
the esteemed members of the head table, the esteemed comrade invited guests, and comrade delegates.
É para nós uma honra e motivo de grande satisfação participarmos neste importante evento e transmitir-vos as saudações fraternais dos militantes do MPLA, dos seus responsáveis e dirigentes e particularmente do seu presidente, o camarada João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço.
For us, it's an extreme high honor to be together with you at this very important conference, to transmit to you our fraternal and militant greetings from the militants of the MPLA, its responsible, its leadership, and particularly its president, Comrade John Manuel Gonzalez Lorenzo.
Gostaríamos de expressar os nossos sinceros agradecimentos ao Congresso Nacional Africano, ANC, e ao Instituto Cubano de Amizade com os Povos, ICAP, pelo amável convite formulado à direção do MPLA para participar no encontro continental africano de solidariedade com Cuba.
We wish to express our sincere appreciation to the African National Congress, ANC, and the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples of the World, ICAP, for this kind invitation that you have given to the leadership of the MPLA to participate in this historical meeting, this historical conference.
Queremos endereçar uma saudação especial ao Partido Comunista de Cuba pela sua firmeza e determinação na busca de soluções que visam pôr fim ao inexplicável bloqueio econômico, financeiro e comercial imposto há várias décadas pelos Estados Unidos da América.
And we would like to give a special revolutionary salute to the Communist Party of Cuba for its firmness, its determination, and all the time looking for solutions to put an end to this unexplainable economic, financial, commercial blockade imposed against Cuba for more than 6 decades.
Caros camaradas,
Dear comrades,
o presente encontro realiza-se no momento em que cada dos nossos países vive momentos de uma renovada esperança, depois do mundo ter sido fortemente assolado pela pandemia da Covid-19, que contrasta com a guerra entre a Rússia e a Ucrânia, cujos efeitos continuam a agravar a crise econômica e financeira internacional, com a cruel guerra contra o povo palestino, bem como a situação social das populações de todos os cantos do nosso planeta.
and this conference comes to renew our hopes, our expectations after the devastating effects of COVID-19 throughout the world, the war of NATO against Russia and Ukraine, and the effects aggravated by the economic crisis of the financial institution from this cruel war against the people of Palestine.
Como é do vosso conhecimento, a República de Angola, sob liderança do camarada presidente João Lourenço, tem vindo a exprimir de uma forma inequívoca a sua solidariedade para com os povos do mundo e, em particular, de Cuba, que lutam pela realização dos seus ideais.
As you already know, the Republic of Angola has never wavered on its support, its continuous support for the revolution of Cuba and against this inhumane blockade against Cuba.
Caros camaradas, a solidariedade deve resultar dos atos de cada membro aqui presente, manifestado no seu posicionamento face aos desafios cada vez mais exigentes do processo de desenvolvimento da humanidade.
But comrades, our solidarity must result in actions. And each of us, each and every one of us who are present here must be very clear in our position to take the actions to deal with these challenges that each time are more and more cruel against humanity.
Houve sempre por parte do governo angolano uma proatividade na defesa dos interesses legítimos de África e dos africanos. Consta ainda na história recente do continente africano que, enquanto Estado soberano, Angola esteve na linha da frente no apoio à luta dos povos da Namíbia, do Zimbábue e da África do Sul para o alcance das respectivas independências políticas e contribuiu para que os seus povos passassem a desfrutar dos direitos cívicos e de cidadania que então lhes eram negados.
So the government of Angola has always been proactive in defending the legitimate interests of Africa and African people. Our recent history shows on the African continent that we want our sovereignty, and Angola has always been on the front line in its support for the struggles of the people of Namibia, of Zimbabwe, of South Africa to reach its respective independence, political independence, to contribute to the people people can enjoy the fruits of their labor and the rights to be free citizens.
O MPLA aproveita este encontro para mais uma vez deixar expresso que continuará a apoiar incondicionalmente a luta do povo cubano que visa pôr fim a esta barbaridade porque viola os princípios do direito internacional e os artigos 1 e 2 da Carta das Nações Unidas.
So it's in the same line, in the same sense that the MPLA wants to take advantage of the opportunity that we've been given here in this conference to express once again clearly that we continue to support unconditionally the struggle of the Cuban people to put an end to this inhumane, barbaric blockade, and that the principles outlined in the United Nations Charter, Articles 1 and 2, must prevail.
O MPLA apoia e solidariza-se com o crescimento de amplo e heterogêneo movimento de solidariedade para com Cuba e insta a comunidade internacional para que se ponha fim ao embargo econômico contra Cuba.
The support, the solidarity the MPLA has with Cuba will only continue to increase and enlarge itself so that we join our voice with Cuba and all the peoples in the world to express in all the sections of the international community that we must put an end to this illegal, inhumane economic blockade against Cuba.
Caros camaradas, permitam-me destacar aqui a prestimosa e decisiva ajuda cubana na libertação de alguns dos nossos países aqui representados, de que resultaram de profundos laços de irmandade e fraternidade, que unem os povos africanos e latino-americanos. Os internacionalistas cubanos combateram lado a lado com os nossos combatentes e verteram seu sangue em batalhas memoráveis, como as do Ebo na província do Kwanza Sul, de Cangamba na província do Mochico e do Cuito-Cuanaval na província do Cuano-Cubango, isto na República de Angola.
Allow me to highlight once again the prestigious and decisive support that Cuba has given to the liberation of some of our countries who are represented here in this conference, that resulted in very close relationships of camaraderie, fraternity, brotherhood, sisterhood that unites the African people with the people of Latin America, and that the Cuban internationalists have fought on the long side of the combatants here in Africa and have spilled their blood in memorial battles in places like Kwanza Sul, in the province of Mochico, in Quito-Cuana Valley, and the province of Cuanda, Kabanga, and Angola.
A contribuição cubana foi também determinante para a implementação da Resolução 435/78 do Conselho de Segurança das Nações Unidas e que abriu o caminho para a independência da Namíbia e a queda do regime do apartheid da África do Sul.
So let it be clear that the contribution of Cuba has made determined contributions for the implementation of United Nations Resolution 435/78 from the Council of Security of the United Nations that opened up the path for independence of Namibia as well as ending the racist regime of apartheid in South Africa.
Camaradas, é justo reconhecermos que Cuba, do comandante Fidel de Castro, apesar das enormes dificuldades que ainda atravessa, sob a liderança do presidente Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, tem conseguido reunir os recursos materiais e humanos necessários para ajudar na educação, saúde e noutras áreas, contribuindo assim no desenvolvimento econômico e social dos nossos respectivos países.
So, comrades, it's only just that we give special recognition to Cuba of Comandante-in-Chief Fidel Castro Ruz. Even though they've been going through all these difficulties as a result of the blockade, they still have able to manage to get enough resources to make sure they have quality education for each Cuban citizen and make sure they have access to the social programs like health and education.
Só com um elevado sentido de generosidade, de entrega, de defesa dos direitos básicos do homem, nomeadamente o direito à liberdade e à independência, é capaz de consentir sacrifícios. São feitos históricos que nada e nem ninguém poderão apagar das páginas da história da humanidade.
And not only have they been struggling to make sure they provide education, healthcare, and other areas contribute to development, economic and social development of the respective countries, it's only a people that have a high level of generosity, a high level of conscience, that are selfless to give all for the defense of basic rights of men and women, particularly in the area of liberty and independence. So they are capable to consent to make sure they write brilliant pages in history.
Para terminar, caros camaradas, Devo dizer que ontem fomos ajudados. É hora de hoje sermos nós a ajudar Cuba. Muito obrigado.
So, comrades, as I come to a close, I would like to express my profound appreciation to the leadership of the party, our sincere appreciation to all the participants who are here at this conference, and hope that each of you will contribute to making sure that we implement the resolutions that come out of this conference with success, so that we can give our help at the proper time to help the people of Cuba to end the illegal blockade. Thank you so much. The struggle continues, and victory is certain.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, he finished 30 seconds less of the exact time with translations. Thank you very much. Comrades, I'm now going to call Comrade Carl Arim, the Deputy Director of International Relations of the National Democratic Congress of Ghana. As he's coming to the front, I want to ask my dear friend and comrade, Comrade Sali Omar, the ambassador of Eritrea. Is he here? Yeah. I must declare, I mean, there's no secret about it. Eritrea is my most favorite country on the African continent. Africa. You'll forgive me. Yes, he's the Dean of Diplomatic Corps, but he's from Eritrea, my favorite country. Take a seat. Comrade Carl Arin, are you here? Okay. I'm now going to call to the podium the one and only People's Bishop from the country that made it all possible for us. Many liberation movement called it home. It endured all harassment, many of us harassment, and it still soldiered on, as did Angola. That's the country of Zambia, the Uni Party. I'm calling Comrade Bishop Mwamba Msonda to come through.
Viva Africa-Cuba solidarity, viva! Viva Nelson Mandela, viva! Viva Fidel Castro, viva! Viva Kenneth Kaunda, viva! Chairperson, Comrade Soli Mapaila, General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. May I ride delightfully on the eloquent protocol of Dr. Naledi Pandor, South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. She is, in your footsteps, one of my favorite foreign ministers in the world. So I ride on our protocol, and I'm assured that I have acknowledged your presence, all of you. Now, in the wake of the 112th anniversary celebrations of the founding of the African National Congress, ANC, on behalf of your sister party, which I represent, UNIP, I rejoice with you in celebrating the 112th anniversary of the party. You are the inheritors of a great movement, and in your hands you hold the best and noblest of that history. I wish you well on behalf of UNEP. With this wish, may you rededicate yourselves to the true values of the ANC of old, of integrity, to selfless service, to uplifting the plight of the poor, to principles, to love. God bless the ANC. God bless South Africa. Thank you. As president of the United National Independence Party, UNEP, in Zambia, it's a great honor for me to be here and affirm my party's commitment to the Cuban Revolution. UNEP, needless to say, has been committed to the Cuban Revolution for decades. Last year, in July 2022, was a milestone marking the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and Zambia. The relationship between President Kenneth Kaunda and Fidel Castro were very special. And I am honored to recall the close fraternal ties my party, under my illustrious predecessor, Kenneth Kaunda, had with President Castro. Both were leaders of the liberation of Africa and Latin America. Both were pillars of the non-aligned movement of nations. Both had a great mutual respect for each other. In Fidel Castro, Cuba gifted the world a remarkable and extraordinary Latin American statesman. So we remember President Fidel Castro Ruz. In remembering President Castro, today we remember a champion of socialism and anti-imperialism and colonialism. We remember his leadership in advancing Cuba's free education and healthcare to high world levels of literacy and life expectancy, which reached the poor. We remember the many medical practitioners Cuba sent to over 60 countries across the globe to provide aid and assistance. We remember Cuba's world-class biotech industry that continues to save millions of lives through dispensing vaccines and drugs to needy countries at a fraction of the cost that the large multinational world charges. We remember how this scientific advance, generosity, and solidarity with the poor and disadvantaged is attributed to Castro's vision. We remember politically how he inspired the Bolivian president, Evo Morales, and Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. We remember his vital involvement in Africa, particularly in Southern Africa, where Cuba's intervention in Angola, as we have heard, in 1975, repelled an apartheid South African invasion. We remember how he personally masterminded the strategy during the last major confrontation with the apartheid South African army at Quito Valley in 1988. The battle was a part of a chain reaction that led to talks between South Africa, Angola, and Cuba on the Cuban withdrawal from Angola, the independence of Namibia, and the dismantling of apartheid in South Africa. We remember the Chilean poet Pablo Neruda remarked that Castro broke the mold of Latin American politicians who promised much and delivered little. We remember Castro as a politician with a very rare quality, for through his long years in power, he stayed true to his convictions to end the liberation of the oppressed and improve the lives of the poor. We remember Fidel Castro because he epitomized the Cuban Revolution, which lives on. Viva Cuba! Viva! In the life of every nation, there are occasions when its ethos is identified with one man or woman who rises above oppression and degradation and wages a struggle against them. And by his suffering and sacrifice, inspires his fellow people to liberate themselves. Such was Fidel Castro of Cuba. As president of UNIP and speaking on behalf of those comrades of goodwill in Zambia, and dare I say in Africa, we endorse unreservedly the theme and purpose of this conference of Africa's commitment to the Cuban Revolution. God bless Cuba. God bless her people. Amandla. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bishop. He saved me 25 seconds. I appreciate. I never thought that a bishop would save me some seconds. Now I'm going to call Dr. Carl Arin, Deputy Director of International Relations of the National Democratic Congress of Ghana, who's here, from that shining star of the African continent. I always say, at the Congress of, at Bandung Congress, a special meeting took place, and this is less recorded in history. The student of history must record it sufficiently and properly. This meeting was convened by a leader of the ANC delegation at the Bandung Congress, Comrade Walter Sisulu. He convened the African delegation. Amongst the African delegates was Julius Nyerere, Mzee Nyerere, was Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Mzee Kaunda. We in the ANC, the underground team, we used to call him, that was his code name, Bishop, Toothless, because he used to say, he addressed, not in a wrong way, he addressed Ian Smith, who was oppressing our people in Zimbabwe. And he says, Smithy is a toothless dog. That was the first president to address another as a toothless dog. So we had a code name of the underground. If things were from Zambia, we say, no, these are from Toothless. to keep that in memory, that Smith is a toothless dog and the Zimbabwean people will ultimately get their freedom. Indeed, they did. We appreciate that. But Walter Sisulu convened all these African delegates. And amongst them was also the young Kwame Nkrumah. And he said, Walter, when he addressed that meeting, that comrades, any of the African countries that gets their liberation first must shoulder the responsibility for the liberation of the entire continent. And Comrade Kwame Nkrumah died fulfilling that mission, as we know. Dr. Arin.
Thank you very much, comrade, and all protocols observed. Greetings from the leadership of the National Democratic Congress of Ghana. We have come together as Africans and one people to recognize a history of struggles and the legend of internationalists who contributed immensely to all the political victories on our continent. We are in deep solidarity with the Cuban people who are victims of colonialism, genocide, alienation, and cruel economic blockade imposed on them by the imperialists over 60 decades. To the members of this fraternity gathered here today, it's paramount for us to continue lifting our voices to condemn this inhuman act being committed against innocent Cuban people by the government of the United States of America. One simple thing the world must know is the freedom and the sovereignty of Cuban people as a nation can never be compromised. That can never be compromised. The resilience and determination of the Cuban people to live a better life must be a choice, not a condition, to peruse their aspirations. As Africans, we are deeply indebted to the Cuban people for the selfless contribution they have made and continue to make towards our social, cultural, economic, and human resource development on the African soil. We wish to state without fear of any our indebtedness to the Cuban hospitality and also set the record straight that tens of thousands of Africans have been trained, and some are still training in Cuban schools and universities. And I'm an example of these students. Today, in many different fields, in the health sector, in the government, and many more, there are exceptional young professionals contributing to the development of our nations who owe their skills to the general training provided to them by Cuba. The NDC of Ghana is sure that this conference will convey our sense of friendship, admiration, respect, and concern to the good people of Cuba. Our comrades on this noble island are going through an exceptionally difficult period. Our global movement in solidarity with the Cuban people must expand in all parts of our continent. We extend our hand of friendship to them, just as They were with us through the terrible years of our political upheavals on our continent, especially the southern region. We therefore greet with pride the delegations that have come from all over the African continent to attend this conference of solidarity with our Cuban brothers and sisters. Your presence in South Africa today is highly appreciable, and for such an occasion honors the sons and daughters of Africa. It underlines the common debt we feel towards Cuba. Cubans have given their lives, literally, in a struggle that was first and foremost not theirs, but ours. We vow never to forget this unparalleled example of selfless internationalism. The NDC, once again, is confident that this important solidarity conference will have an excellent deliberation and it will be a success. Long live the NDC and the Communist Party of Cuba. Long live the friendship between Africa and Cuba. Patria o muerte. Viva Cuba libre. Viva Fidel. Viva Raúl. Venceremos. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Yeah, I can feel that this one trained in Cuba. So, comrades, let me just say this message to you. We received a number of requests for comrades to be on the speaking list. There are those that we have accepted, others we have said they can write the messages, we will publish them as part of the record of this conference. But we have agreed that we will extend the program to accommodate some of those messages that were not originally on the program. So please bear with us. And I know that some of you have arranged bilaterals, and we'll have enough time much later today and tomorrow. And the First Deputy General Secretary of the ANC herself has postponed some of these bilaterals to give importance to this current session, because the session of concrete commitments, of concrete testimonies about the role of Cuba on the continent. I'm now going to call the Dean of Diplomatic Corps in South Africa, Ambassador Salih Omar, who's also a member of the Eritrea People's Front for Democracy and Justice, the PFDJ. And I always say to comrades in my party, if you have never been to Eritrea, you have not tasted socialism in practice on the African continent. Ambassador Omar.
Good evening, dear comrades, and thank you, Chairperson, my comrade Soli Mapaula, dear leaders and members of the African National Congress, First Deputy Secretary General of the ANC and Head of National Executive Council, International Relations Committee, Comrade Nombula Mokonyane, Mpumalanga Provincial Chairperson, African National Congress Alliances, General Secretary of South African Communist Party, Comrade Solim Mapaila, COSATU, my dear friend, colleague, Ambassador of Cuba to South Africa, Comrade Fernando Gonzalez, Comrade Oscar Dramas Oliva, revolutionary movement leaders present, all protocol observed. It is indeed a singular honor and privilege for me to address this 7th Africa-Cuba International Solidarity Conference, representing an organization, the People's Front for Democracy and Justice. Comrades, this gathering represents a significant accomplishment in our ongoing commitment to strengthen the bonds of friendship, solidarity between the people of Cuba and Africa. As we gather here, we are reminded of the historical connections that unite our continent and the Cuban people and government. The quest for autonomy, self-governance, and the aspiration for a more promising tomorrow has been a shared element interwoven into the tapestry of African and Cuban history. Cuba has consistently provided support throughout the African liberation struggles and has been a steadfast ally since anti-colonial and apartheid efforts. The Cuban people's demonstration of international support, specifically in the domain of healthcare and education, has profoundly influenced the thoughts and the emotions of Africans throughout the continent. Comrades, as we gather here in Mpumalanga, we need to reflect on the challenges that lie ahead. Our shared commitment to the principles of justice and equality requires us to address the pressing issues that our nations face today. The global landscape is evolving, presenting us with new challenges such as climate change, economic disparities, but in confronting these challenges, we must draw inspiration from the resilience and the determination of our people. The 7th African-Cuba International Solidarity Conference offers us an opportunity to reassert our joint dedication to the principles of the Cuban Revolution and the African pursuit of unity and progress. This is an appeal for us to enhance our cooperation in several domains, such as healthcare, education, technology, and trade. Collectively, we have the ability to construct a forthcoming human social state in which the values of social justice and equality are not only abstract concepts but tangible activities for every member of our society. In the realm of healthcare, we salute Cuba's outstanding contributions to medical diplomacy. The Cuban medical brigades have played a crucial role in providing health care to the underserved regions of Africa and beyond, demonstrating the true spirit of solidarity. We must explore ways to enhance our collaboration to fundamental advancement and Cuba's unwavering dedication to providing education to all is commendable. Comrades, amidst the current economic difficulty, let us examine also potential opportunities for enhanced trade and economic collaboration between Cuba and the continent of Africa. In conclusion, let this 7th Africa-Cuba International Solidarity Meeting be a catalyst for renewed collaboration, mutual understanding, and shared prosperity. Our journey towards a bright future requires our unity, determination, and steadfast commitment to the principles of justice and equality. May the spirit of solidarity that binds Africa and Cuba continue to inspire us as we work together for a better tomorrow. A luta continua. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Ambassador. I'm going to call the representative of the suffering people of Palestine. But I must first start by acknowledging Comrade Fernando's gratitude that is President of ICAP. When he made his main address in this Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference, he put on the scarf of the people of Palestine. But comrades, I think it will be befitting that as we call Comrade Bassam El Husseini, self-determination and against Israeli occupation that will recognize that over 23,000 people have just been killed. And more than 60,000 people have been injured. Almost 2 million people have been displaced. 7,000 people are unaccounted for, arrested by the Israeli regime, released as body bags when they are rotting so that their families cannot identify them. Some are still missing in the rubble after the bombardment by this terror state of Israel. It will be befitting that as Comrade Bassam comes to the podium, we rise up and observe a moment of silence with the people of Palestine who succumbed to this bombardment. Comrade Bassam. Long live Palestine, long live! Long live.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you, thank you. Viva South Africa, viva! Viva, viva Cuba, viva! Viva! Viva international solidarity with Palestinian people, viva! Viva! Dear comrades, Mvola Mikayani, Deputy Secretary General of ANC, dear comrades, Soli Mabaila, Secretary General of Communist Party, dear comrade Mike Shangagi, the Deputy President of COSATO, dear comrades Fernando's Angolas, the heads of Cuban delegation to the conference. All protocol observed. Dear comrades, on behalf of the President of the State of Palestine, President of BLO, His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, and our people and our ambassador, allow me to express our sincere appreciation, heartfelt gratitude to South African people, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Parliament and the government, the alliance with all the progressive political powers who have demonstrated unwavering support for Palestinian people during the current barbaric war since October 7 till today. Dear comrades, we cherish the common historical relation of struggle created by great leaders such as Nelson Mandela and Yasser Arafat. The first meeting between our leaders, between Comrade Oliver Tambo and Comrade Martyr Khalil al-Wazir, Deputy Commander-in-Chief of Palestinian Revolution Force in Algeria, 1964. As well as we cherish the historical relation between Palestine and Cuba, and almost the historical freedom movement in the continent. The State of Palestine highly appreciates the South African historic progressive step as South Africa accepts to be legal opponent to Israel in the International Court of Justice on behalf of the Palestinian people in the matter that does not directly concern. This is the evidence of the principle and the value of the people of South Africa and the ruling party and alliance, and the strong relation between our two peoples. Dear comrades, today Palestinian people are subjected to comprehensive war, genocide in Gaza Strip, West Bank, Jerusalem, with the aims to elimination of our national cause and to turning it into a humanitarian issue. That's all. The world witnessed today the second Nakba. The Nakba means the catastrophe. The first Nakba was in 1984 when Israel uprooted more than 2/3 of our people. The Israeli crime today are state-organized terrorism with no sense of USA Western powers. We received a Jewish in our country and opened our homes, land for them as a victim of First and Second World War and Holocaust in Germany. But today, we are a victim of this victim. Dear comrades, we appeal to international community to put pressure on Israel to stop the barbaric war and label Israel as a apartheid state, including imposing all kinds of sanctions. We confirm that the military and security solution will not bring security and peace to anyone. And the Middle East region will not enjoy stability without achieving all demands of Palestinian people, especially freedom and returning of Palestinian refugees. Now, Palestinian refugees is 7 million. The resolution of UN 194 confirm the right of returning to their homes. We assure that Gaza, like a phoenix that emerged from the ashes and rebels, and like South African phoenix tree that hits by lightning and tender but grow again with strengths. Lastly, we wish ANC alliance for achieving the overwhelming majority in upcoming election to protect all the moral principle of democratic South Africa, as well as to secure the bright future for the children of this beloved country. A strong ANC and alliance is strong South Africa. A strong South Africa is a strong Palestine. A strong Cuba is a strong Palestine. A strong solidarity with Palestine is strong Palestine. And I thank you all for your warm solidarity with our people today. Thank you. Amandla.
Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea. Free, free Palestine. Thank you very much. We are all Gaza. Yeah, Gaza is us. We are Gaza. Comrades, let me now call the great mother of our continent, who represents the Pan-African Women's Organization. On the program, it was written, the Deputy President, Comrade Batabile Dlamini. Then the President arrived. Then Comrade Batabile came and said, my President is here, I won't speak when she's here. So, Comrade Eunice Ipenge, the President of Pan-African Women's Organization, takes the floor.
Please, can I go to the protocol? I would like to call my Vice President to join me.
Okay. She also wants a Vice President to join her on the stage. Yes. I accept that protocol.
Yes.
At the same time as the Deputy President is coming through, I want to call Comrade Araklis to come to the front. And I also want to call the network, the National Network on Cuba from the USA, to come to the front.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, Maribongwe. Thank you very much, Director of the proceedings of this very important meeting. Very important. You are directing, and I thank you for giving me the floor. Let me salute the Deputy President of ANC and of the Republic of South Africa. Also, to salute the first Deputy Secretary General of ANC, the leadership of ECAP, and all ANC leadership present here. The South African Communist Party Central Committee, COSATU leadership, the liberation movements present here, the Friends of Cuba, Focus, Botswana National Front, Alliance of Democratic Movement of Economic Change, delegates from countries like Burundi, Lesotho, Sudan, Guinea, Ghana, Opudemo SPS, Pan-African Youth Union, and the young women of Africa. I do not want to leave without saluting you. I also salute the representative of UNEP of Zambia and all fraternal organizations present here. the Pan-Africa Women's Organization, salute to you all. We thank the ANC leadership for inviting Pan-Africa Women's Organization to participate in this very important meeting of solidarity to Cuba. Pan-Africa Women's Organization is the first continental women's organization that was formed in 1962 in Tanganyika by then, now Tanzania. 11 independent African countries, women from those countries, they gathered in Tanzania, plus Tanganyika, plus 10 liberation movements. And they formed up this women's organization. The first objective was to liberate the continent, the African continent, to mobilize the women of the continent, to liberate the continent from colonialism and apartheid. We have managed to liberate the continent, except the Western Sahara that we are focusing on. Politically, we have liberated the continent. The organization has participated in the liberation of the continent as it has been observer status of OAU, now AU. The organization has been working with the Liberation Committee, and all the stories that were narrated here, the experience of Africa liberation and the solidarity with Cuba, this organization has been part and parcel of it. The first headquarters was in Mali, the second in Algeria, the third one in Angola, and the fourth one in South Africa, here where we are. The Congress of 2020 that held in Namibia decided to fix the headquarters in South Africa here. I just want to stand by that. And as we are standing here, we are representatives of all progressive women's organizations in this continent. We take this opportunity to pass a message of solidarity to Cuba, which played and continues to play an important role in the lives of people of Africa. Pan-Africa Women's Organization is an affiliate to Women in the National Democratic Federation, where we meet annually, and we are there as the women of Cuba are members of that organization. We are briefed on the situation on the island, and we have both bilateral and continental relations with the women of Cuba. We condemn the US embargo against Cuba, that which borders around the discrimination of human rights of the people of Cuba, and we condemn it mostly as it's bordered limiting access to essential goods, food, medicine, and other basic necessities that impact more on women and children. And it is that we believe in effective engagement to promote positive change by advocating the end to this embargo. Pledging solidarity with people of Cuba must involve supporting civil society organizations in that country, and also individuals who are promoting human rights. Comrades and friends, we are saying pledging solidarity with people of Cuba and advocating for end of embargo requires a thoughtful and nuanced approach that takes into account the realities that are facing people of Cuba and women and children in particular. We condemn this embargo in its totality and urge the African nations to popularize the sense of solidarity with Cuba. We echo the statements made this morning by the Vice President of ANC and of the Republic of South Africa, specifically on trade and investment, because the sanctions, they are touching on trade and investment with Cuba. So we should take up actions that we do invest, African countries invest in Cuba and trade with Cuba, no matter what. We also echo the action-oriented activities that were proposed by Comrade Dr. Nelind Pandor and the First Secretary General of ANC, Comrade Mvula Makonyane. They have proposed concrete actions to be taken. And I could see that some of these actions with the women movement, we can participate to organize solidarity activities, to organize solidarity messages, also to popularize this solidarity to our children and our grandchildren. But we would like action-oriented activities, organizing food, organizing clothes, and send to Cuba. The issue of medicine also, we can organize those ones. I'm speaking here as a product of the liberation struggle. We survived because other people organized those action-oriented activities and things and materials were sent to us. We were given medicine, we were given clothes, we were given food, and we survived. So the military activities, we participated on that and we were given those people. They have taken from what they cherish most to make sure that we survived and we win the struggle. We should do it for the Cubans. We are also saluting the Cubans for maintaining their independence and sovereignty despite these difficult situations. So we salute you, we will support you. The women of the continent are behind you and behind the people of Cuba and the women of Cuba. We reaffirm our commitment on solidarity with Cuba, Palestine, and Western Sahara. We stand by South African action of taking Israel to International Court of Justice. We call for justice to be maintained. Our hearts are sore when we see the children and the women being killed in Gaza. It is our children. We give birth to life, and it is very painful for us to see life being destroyed. Even not with the war. If you deny people food, it's a killing. If you deny people medicine, it's a killing. What do you expect people to survive from? Is that killing we are condemning. And we will never forget about those who stood by us during the struggle. We are saying solidarity forever, a luta continua. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, Unity is our strength.
Yeah, I must tell you that President Mandela had this discussion in the US with one anchor. And this anchor wanted to trap him about support for Yasser Arafat and Palestinian struggle and Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution. So he posed this question differently and so forth. So President Mandela, paraphrasing him, not direct quote, simply says to him, no. So do you want to determine who our friends should be? And that your enemies are not necessarily our enemies. Yasser Arafat and Fidel Castro had not only supported our liberation struggle, they have also given us weapons to prosecute our struggle. And this anchor was left paralyzed. He didn't know what to do. Then Mandela said to him, oh, have I paralyzed you? So I must confess, I was paralyzed by power. So they exceeded my time limit, but I could not stand up. Against the mothers, though it was impossible. I'm now going to give the opportunity to the leader, the executive secretary of the World Peace Council, a great friend of the working movement of the world, and a great friend of Cuba, a great friend of South Africa, a good friend of our former Deputy General Secretary, Comrade Chris Mahlaku. They work tirelessly together. It's Comrade Aratlis Tsapataridis. Tsapataridis. Aratlis, thank you very much, my brother. Thank you. From the World Peace Council.
Distinguished comrades from the organizing committee of this conference, above all and first, the leaders of the ANC under the leadership here of Comrade Nomvula Mokonyane, Comrade Soli Mapaila, General Secretary of the SSCP, and Mike Shagagi, Vice President of the COSATU. Dear comrades of the Cuban delegation of the ICAP and its President Fernando Gonzalez Yort. Dear comrades and friends from all corners of Africa, friends of Cuba and its revolution. It is an extraordinary pleasure to be amongst you today here in South Africa, to be part of the big gathering of solidarity movements and groups from the African continent. On behalf of the World Peace Council, the biggest international organization of peace movements, we convey our militant, fraternal, anti-imperialist peace greetings to all of you. The South African organizers of this conference deserve our respect and congratulations for their unlimited solidarity on the side of the Cuban Revolution, the Cuban people since the beginning 65 years ago. Allow me, above all, to express here, Soli just mentioned it, our heartfelt grief for the loss of one great son of South Africa, a dedicated champion and internationalist, a special friend of the Cuban Revolution, who passed away 1 year ago. Chris Matlako, our brother, comrade and friend, was a leading figure of the South African Communist Party and a member of the World Peace Council Secretariat. His legacy will always be with us in the struggles for a world without imperialist wars and exploitation. From our youth times, we had learned from our South African friends and comrades not only about the glorious struggles and sacrifices in the times of apartheid in order to achieve freedom and democracy in South Africa, but also the political and internationalist struggle hand in hand with other African peoples against their colonial oppressors. The Cuban people, its selfless internationalist contribution in many levels, and the presence of sons and daughters of Fidel on African soil played a decisive role without which the liberation of so many countries would not have been achieved. The historical Battle of Cuito Canavale in 1987-88 with the internationalist support of the Soviet Union, of Cuba, and the common efforts of the ANC and SWAPO Namibia, marked a milestone for the liberation not only of Angola, but paved also the way for many others. Having had the privilege to be part of the observer process of the first free elections in South Africa in 1994, which is almost 30 years ago, I learned that the freedom in political terms, which was achieved with the overwhelming victory of the ANC then, and with the abolition of the apartheid since then, will not bring complete democracy and social justice in a country unless also injustice, exploitation, and poverty will be abolished. Dear comrades and friends, these days the South African government took an honorable initiative to file a case in the International Court of Justice against Israel for committing genocide against the Palestinian people. We hail this initiative and appreciate it highly. It reflects not only the will and feelings of the South African people, but also the legacy of the founding President Nelson Mandela, who always underlined that South Africa's freedom will be always incomplete without the freedom of Palestine. From South Africa, we denounce the ongoing massacres of the Israeli occupation army committed for more than 100 days in the Palestinian Gaza Strip, the indiscriminately killing of almost 24,000 Palestinians, majority women and children, the destruction of houses, infrastructure, mosques, churches, hospitals, and schools. We appreciate likewise the strong stand and support of this initiative of South Africa by the revolutionary government of Cuba and its people. We condemn the support the United States of America and its allies are providing to the Israeli war machine with the pretext of Israel's right to self-defense. Dear comrades, Cuba and its people have celebrated recently 65 years of the triumph of the revolution. Cuba, a country which defends with dignity and pride its achievements and its right to decide alone and freely about its fortunes. Cuba is facing the cruelest economical, financial, and commercial blockade by the United States and its successive administrations, regardless to which party the resident of the White House belongs. The US administration imposes hundreds of sanctions and measures on Cuba in order to asphyxiate and strangle the economy and the daily life of Cubans with the hope that the people will revolt against its elected and legitimate government in Cuba. But Cuba stands on its feet, firm and proud, despite the existing difficulties for its people. Cuba is championing in the field of internationalist and humanitarian aid with doctors, nurses, medicine, and vaccines, where others are sending bombs. Cuba is defending its achievements, and despite the blockade, it is expanding them. The island of the revolution remains always a shining example for the peoples of Latin America and of the entire world, a source of inspiration for the just causes of so many peoples in the world. As World Peace Council, we demand the unconditional lifting of the blockade against Cuba, the shutdown of the US bases in Guantanamo, and the return of the territory to its true owner, which is the Cuban people. Likewise, we demand the removal of Cuba from the shameful list of states sponsoring terrorism. Cuba stood always on the side of the African peoples, of the African nations who faced the occupation, the colonial oppression, the plunder and the theft of their richness and their resources. Being today in South Africa, we would never miss to mention and to highlight the last and almost forgotten case of colonialism in Africa, the case of the just cause of the Western Sahara. The people of Western Sahara, the Sahrawi Democratic Arab Republic, is facing since 50 years the brutal Moroccan occupation of its territories, the oppression and deprivation of its right to self-determination as provided by the UN resolutions. The World Peace Council stands in solidarity with the people of Western Sahara, with the Polisario Front, for its rights to its own state as a result of a free and fair referendum under the United Nations. We know and appreciate highly the firm and principled support of the Cuban Revolution also on this noble cause. Dear comrades, the World Peace Council is completing this year 75 years of struggle on the side of the poor and the oppressed. From South Africa, the symbol of African peoples, we call upon the organizations present to join efforts and voices with the World Peace Council, to come back to the great family of World Peace Council, to which many of the organizations and political parties belonged in the past, and to work with us as we had the privilege and the honor in the beginning of the 1990s to have a South African comrade as president of the World Peace Council, Albertina Sisulu, a genuine leader of the ANC to whom we pay on this occasion our respect and recognition. Long live Cuba, long live Palestine, long live Western Sahara. A luta continua. Amandla. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Araklis. I'm now going to call the National Network on Cuba from the USA, Shaquille Fontenot. As she comes to the podium, I'm asking the Comrade Bening Ahmed from the Pan-African Youth Union to come to the front, as well as Comrade Kamal Kabala from Egypt, the President of Friends of Cuba in Egypt, to come to the front, as well as Comrade Isaac Sane, who's going to represent a variety of sections of the Canadian Network on Cuba and Caribbean Solidarity Network for Cuba, as well as the Global African Congress, which also organizes a lot of solidarity activities on Cuba. We will have 3 speakers that will not be able to conclude tonight so that we can have lunch, dinner, when it's still appropriate, and also because we extended overly our time. We thought we'll extend it by 1 hour. We appreciate that we'll exceed by a few minutes after 1 hour. But those speakers can take the floor. Shakili.
Esteemed delegates and comrades, first, thank you to the ANC for organizing this critical gathering, and thank you to all the representatives and delegates from all across the African diaspora. Special greetings to our Cuban family here with us from ECAP as well. I stand before you today as a representative of the National Network on Cuba, as well as the 45 million plus United States residents who stand in solidarity and friendship with Cuba despite what our government does. Despite surveillance, increased repression, and increased investigations, we stand with Cuba, and we will continue to educate people about Cuba. We will continue to bring youth to Cuba so that they can see the truth. I'm here to share about some of our progress and outline the path ahead in our campaign to normalize relations with Cuba, get the U.S. out of Guantanamo, get the inhumane U.S. economic blockade against Cuba lifted, and to remove Cuba from the U.S. state sponsors of a terror list. It's crucial to note that Cuba should have never been on this list in the first place, and our collective efforts seek to rectify this injustice. In the year 2023, we orchestrated hundreds of actions and political education sessions, including impactful street protests in Washington, D.C. and across the United States, where thousands protested against this designation, as well as against the U.S. economic blockade. We hosted teach-ins, conferences, and initiatives, and through our concerted efforts, we have significantly heightened awareness and opposition to the harmful and unjust policy maintained by genocide Joe Biden that has kept Cuba on this list. We've also welcomed new member groups, putting us at just under 70 member groups, which include Cuba-C, New York, New Jersey, and Minnesota Cuba Committee, who are here with us today. Collectively, we've achieved an organizational milestone with the passage of over 100 resolutions from city councils, county councils, states, and senators all over the United States, and colonies, including Washington, D.C., all expressing opposition to the economic blockade of Cuba and advocating for the removal of the SSOT designation. However, despite of our accomplishments, Cuba remains on the list, exacerbating the 6 decades-long U.S. economic blockade and leading to severe shortages of medicines and food in Cuba. This blockade is over 2 times as old as me. It's time for it to go. It's time for it to go. It's time for it to go. The United States is hemorrhaging Cuba's talent, energy, and resources. It's putting its nose where it doesn't belong, and it's denying the will of the people yet again. This isn't fair to Cuba when Dr. Comrade Naledi just shared how impactful Cuba has been around the world, how crucial Cuba has been in global liberation struggles, in African liberation struggles. The U.S. says Cuba isn't fully cooperating and gives unfounded explanations for the designations, but they're just mad because Cuba won't fold and that Cuba isn't cooperating with the whims of capitalism and imperialism. Cuba cooperates with the world, not bullies. The U.S. is just mad because the Cuban Revolution lives. Don't you hate a sore loser? Does the U.S. have a lung cancer vaccine? Does the U.S. have a good treatment for diabetic ulcers? I know Cuba does. As we approach the upcoming U.S. presidential election, which will absorb energy, money, and media coverage, we recognize the urgency of our cause. The time for action is now. The clock is ticking. The U.S. empire is on a rapid decline, and the subjugation of all oppressed people around the world is no longer working. This is a huge opportunity for the Cuba Solidarity Movement. Millions of people are standing in solidarity with us, and this is the moment to seize. This 7th conference is uniquely positioned in South Africa, a nation that has taken a strong stance against the ongoing genocidal atrocities in Gaza. This alignment of this conference with South Africa's call for justice at an international level adds profound meaning to our collective efforts. It underscores the interconnectedness of global struggles for human rights and liberations. The plight of the Palestinian people also resonates with the experiences of those who fought against apartheid in South Africa and exemplifies the shared commitment to confronting injustice wherever it occurs. Anywhere there's a struggle against capitalism and imperialism is my homeland. At this moment, our campaign to remove Cuba from the U.S. state sponsors of terrorism intersects with South Africa and the world's call for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. It's a reminder that our battles are interconnected and the strength of our solidarity can be a force for positive change on multiple fronts. As the Palestinian youth movement mentioned just yesterday, the U.S. could not be more transparent in its feigned moral outrage over the partial blockade of Bab el-Mandeb, given its own refusal to lift its own blockade of Cuba for decades, and indeed for the entirety of most of our lifetimes. The arrogance of the capitalists is our saving grace. There are pressure points all over the world that are leading to our liberation. So I'll do my part to help liberate Cuba, and I hope you'll do your part too. The National Network on Cuba and U.S.-Cuba normalization are urging member organizations to participate in an urgent advocacy push planned for January and February, pushing our member organizations to reach out to their congressional representatives, write protest letters, and organize events in support of Cuba throughout the year, but especially at the beginning of the year. In March, the Federation of Cuban Women will also be visiting New York to help educate the community and collaborate with our solidarity activists. We will continue to engage in cultural, medical, and educational partnerships to show the real Cuba to the world and to mobilize our youth. We will never stop until Cuba is unchained and unblocked. As our comrades mentioned earlier, action is more important than words. Let us carry with us the resonance of this historic moment in South Africa. Together, we can amplify our voices to demand justice for Cuba and to support South Africa's call for an end to the suffering of the Palestinian people. The next words are from Shaquille Fontenot, not the NNOC, but I'm going to say it anyway. Long live Palestine. Long live Cuba. Long live Africa. I send love and power to the people's struggles in Sudan, the Congo, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii, and Western Sahara, and to all sanctioned countries fighting for self-determination and existence in the midst of colonial oppression and repression. The current world order is shifting, and there will be liberation for you too. Let us move forward with a renewed sense of purpose and renewed internationalism. For me, Cuba's liberation is everybody's liberation. It's win or die. It's victory or martyrdom. It's homeland or death. All power to the people, and especially the organized people. Long live the Cuban Revolution.
Amanda. Yeah, she was fire. And right from the USA. Yeah, this is very important. This is quite inspiring. Our PYA structures should find time to have a bilateral with this great young woman and activist. I'm now going to ask Comrade Bening Ahmed from the Pan-African Youth Union to give us the message of the African youth.
Thank you so much. Comrade DSG of the ANC, I wish to stand on the existing protocol and also to extend our congratulations to the ANC for this noble gesture and for giving us an opportunity to be here today. On behalf of the national coordinating mechanisms across the African continent, our national youth councils, national youth development agencies, authorities, and commissions, wish to express our solidarity to our friends in Cuba. The young people of this continent have unconditional support and solidarity for you. But I would want to touch on just a couple of points. And the first is that if you listen to all the speakers, they have outlined in very explicit terms the contribution of Cuba and its people to this continent prior to independence. Today, most of you in this room are independent. You run states. And therefore, our solidarity and contribution to the Cuban people must be tangible. And that's why I agree with the DSG to say we need action, because Cuban people spilled their blood on the African continent. They brought resources from Cuba to train our revolutionary organizations. They stayed on this continent, helped us to fight. Today we are independent. We cannot be supporting Cuba through lip service and rhetorics. And so the ANC is led the charge. There are so many other political parties that are leading governments in this room that just standing on podiums and chanting is not enough. We want to see practical action and support to the Cuban people. The second point that I want to touch on is to say that the contribution, the humanitarian contribution of the Cuban people to Africa, and I lead young people on the continent, and in almost every country there's a Cuban-trained doctor there on the continent. And therefore, when we meet like this, we are supposed to come out with proper, tangible actions. And I want to encourage the 7th conference not to just come with political solidarity, but we want to see political parties in this room, from Frelimo to MPLA to the ZANU-PFs, and all political parties that are in government, to make significant and meaningful contribution to appreciate the Cuban people. In concluding, the Cuban people are supposed to be Nobel laureates, not to be under sanctions by the United States. And therefore, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that the Cuban people are appreciated for their support and contribution to the independence of the continent, and not for our government to be hypocritical by not being able to come out full force and full action to support. On this, in concluding, I want to thank the organizers of this event, and to the friends from Cuba, you have our unflinching support. We go with POW. We will work with the parties here to mobilize support for the people of Cuba. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to call the Friends of Cuba from Egypt, Comrade Gamal.
Thank you very much. Viva Cuba, Africa, viva! Viva Egypt-Cuba friendship! Dear friends, as I am following speeches from the beginning, I noticed that there is no mention to Gamal Abdel Nasser, who is an African leader. So, I am coming from the country of Gamal Abdel Nasser. I am representing Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association. I think if great leader Nelson Mandela still alive, I think he will mention for the beginning Gamal Abdel Nasser. So, viva Gamal Abdel Nasser! Viva Nelson Mandela! I'm not going to give a speech. It's just a few words. To share you all from our association, Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association, full solidarity and support with Cuba. Also, I wish to forward our thanks from Egypt, from the Arab world, on behalf of our brothers, the Palestinians, that how much is touching our hearts. I tried my best as a journalist to express that. I'm not I'm not enough speaker for speeches, but I am a journalist who is writing every day. So I wish to say that the Cuba, South Africa, touched our heart very much for supporting our brother in Palestine. Thank you very much. Hasta la victoria siempre. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Kamal. I'm now going to ask Comrade Isaac Sane, who represents those different networks and has written extensively, even academically, on the question of Cuba, to say a few words.
First, as everyone has done with protocol, I want to thank the ANC and all the organizers for organizing this magnificent event. There's been fire in the room from what everyone has said. And it's a deep honor. It was deeply moving when I arrived in Johannesburg yesterday to be in a country that took such a powerful stand against the genocide going on in Gaza. The world stands and respects South Africa for standing up to Zionist terror and to Western imperialism. I bring revolutionary greetings, and I'll be short today, from 3 organizations to this festival of solidarity. The Canadian Network on Cuba, on whose executive I sit, the Caribbean Solidarity Network for Cuba, on who I also serve on the executive, and the Global African Congress, which is very much involved and at the forefront in a civil society of fighting for reparations, but has always stood shoulder to shoulder with Cuba. I think today, we've heard so many powerful speeches. Comrade Father Michael Lapsey said it very clearly. No country, that is Cuba, no country has given so much to the world and received so little in return. Minister Pando laid out the resume of Cuba as it is dedicated to Africa and to Africans. I remember once it was an African elder who said, Cuba is the only country to have come to Africa and gone away with nothing but the coffins of its sons and daughters who died in the struggles to liberate Africa. Nelson Mandela, when he visited Cuba in 1991, said that Africa was used to people coming, foreigners coming, to colonize African land, to exploit its people, and to steal its resources. Never had it seen where people came to join the war and wheel, trials and tribulations, to shed their blood as Cubans did. And we all know in Freedom Park, there's a wall with over 2,000 names of the Cubans who died in Angola to defend Africa, and to defend particularly Southern Africa